Hi, it's Monday, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked. I'm Jude Gosling, artist and artistic director of Together 2012, that's bringing you this live stream today. With me in my East London studio is Julie Newman, artist and chair of Together 2012. We're going to go to the other end of our virtual sofa first, into the West Midlands, and ask for some introductions and some audio description. And you may also want to pull your camera down slightly. We've got quite a lot of white space above your heads.
Okay, well, I shall do that camera bit in a minute, otherwise I'll be banging the microphone. Um, so, afternoon, welcome to yet another week of lockdown. The weather here actually is still quite nice, although not as hot as you had it in London. So, up in Sutton Coldfield, I'm Robin Surgener. I'm also that wherever I go, but today I am still on the sofa in Sutton Coldfield. I am business director at Together 2012 and also known as Angry Fish when I'm being a artist. Today I have to be honest and say today's schedule went a bit out the window, so I've literally just jumped out the shower. So if I look like I've got wet hair, then well seen. I am wearing no rimmed glasses with silver frames. I am shaven, and I am wearing a uh, polo shirt which has black collar and arm cuffs and then grey, black and white stripes across, which, well, that's what it, I'm not sure what it looks like. A bit of a zebra crossing if I lay down in a road, I think.
Hi, I'm Josh Surgener. I'm one of the other hosts of Together TV, and I'm a doctoral research student in my spare time. Um, I've got swept over blonde hair, no glasses, and then I'm wearing a blue-bodied jacket that has a red sleeves and red kind of hood and neck. And if I was to do a quick pirouette, you see that it has a white back as well. But I'm not going to do a pirouette.
I was going to say that's quite a shame because Monday is one of the days when we look at dance as one of the art forms. Together 2012 is an organisation that was founded by disabled artists, but for everybody, back in 2013 to take forward the Paralympic cultural legacy. We're based in the London Borough of Newham, well, apart from the people in the West Midlands. Newham was the main host borough for the London 2012 Olympics and Paralympics. Right now, we would be due to be celebrating with the Japanese, but as we know, things have intervened. The four of us are still locked down because we're in the shielding group, but we know that a lot of people are still going to be mostly at home for a long time to come, and we hope to be there with you. So, usually at this time of the year, we would, and indeed almost the entire year, apart from a 3 week break at Christmas, we would be running free creative clubs for disabled people and whoever they wanted to bring with them in East Ham. And different days, different clubs, different art forms. On a Monday, we have once a month, we have a dance club, and once a month, we have a photographers and filmmakers club. We're going to play you a video a bit later on that will tell you more about the Join In From Home programme and particularly those activities. But I think first we need to come back to some more introductions and a bit of audio description. So, Julie, who are you? What do you look like?
Who am I? That's a really good question. Who am I? I often ask myself that and come up with many answers. So perhaps I'm many people, or perhaps I'm just me. In this chair, I'm the chair. I'm the chair of Together 2012. I have gold and silver hair. I have dark rimmed glasses. I'm currently wearing a white t shirt which says Choose Love, one of my favorites. It's an Amnesty t shirt, but it is a favorite of mine. It's comfortable and I like the message.
And finally, I've got short, hennaed red, self cropped hair, the Corona crop as we call it. I've got black rimmed glasses, black wrist braces, silver jewellery, and I'm wearing a white t-shirt with a black square with a globe in the middle that says "We can change the world." So that's very good messages, I think, on our t-shirts from Monday, and we didn't even colour
We
coordinate.
didn't. It's true. It's so
So,
true.
as we say, Monday is dance and film before anything else, although we incorporate lots of other things as well. At about 3:20, we're going to be speaking to Isolta Avila from the Sign Dance Company. They're going to be telling us about a festival they're participating in tomorrow virtually, and also just a little bit about the performance they'll be doing for our Disability History Month festival. Our artistic programme peaks every year with a 4 week long festival in November, December for Disability History Month. It's always free, it's always led by disabled artists, it's always for everybody. And this year it will be online. And Sign Dance Collective International are just one of the wonderful disabled led artists and companies that we'll be looking at. We've also going to end today's show with a video from our associate drama company, Act Up Newham, and that is focusing on some breathing exercises and positive affirmations led by Jade Sempari. And we thought that would be a really nice end to the program, and again help you to start the week fairly gently. On a Friday, we always do a feature called Something for the Weekend, and we look at the things that are available online and offline to do from home. We all planned a weekend where we viewed a lot of films, and we thought we'd find out how each other got on and maybe talk about how some of the themes in those films and storytelling can be drawn out a bit more widely for our own films. As you'll see from the Join In From Home programme video later, we do have various filmmaking challenges out there as part of our Join In From Home programme. And we accept films by any disabled filmmaker, any genre, any length for our film festival, which takes place, I think, from this first weekend in December. I will hesitate before, I think it's the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, with films screened over 3 of those days and 2 days of workshops. So we really want to encourage you to get on and make some films. Josh, what did you see over the weekend?
So we've been watching a lot of Agent Carter, which is a Marvel series from a few years ago, but something that kind of Emily hadn't seen. So we've been kind of making the most of my Disney Plus subscription, and we've watched all of season 1, and we're kind of the third of the way through season 2. So we've put in a good stint over the weekend. So that was what we spent most of our weekend watching.
So there's some thoughts around there about how you take basically cartoons, graphic novels, comics, and turn them into live action. What were you watching, Julie?
Similar sort of thing, but not. As much as it's sort of fairly pedestrian, really. The Frozen 2 and Maleficent popped up. Mamma Mia, which I loved, and I'd forgotten how much I really enjoyed it. I found it so uplifting. And the second best, Marigold Hotel, which again the music I thought was very uplifting, and I like the fact that it's predominantly featuring older actresses and actors. I really like that, and I'm always amazed at how they interact with each other. I think that's a real craft there. It's lovely.
So yes, because it's what you might describe as an ensemble film, doesn't it? So instead of having one star, you have a whole group of stars. I've often thought that's a more difficult kind of film script to write, but I don't know what anybody else thinks. I also watched Maleficent, which I think was on the BBC. And then one which was on a subscription channel, but I think is available on most of the subscription channels, or maybe just Disney Plus, which was Frozen 2. And I'm not quite sure what to make of it. You've seen Frozen 2, haven't you, Josh?
Yeah, Emily and I watched it last weekend, I believe. Also on Disney Plus. So it's just been released.
Yeah, so for anybody who, well, without giving away too much of the plot to people who are desperate to see it, you've essentially got two sisters, and it starts with a flashback to when their parents were still alive because in Frozen 1 they're orphaned, and you get a bit of a backstory about where the parents came from. And it turns out, that you'd got people from two different sides of the tracks almost who fell in love, got married, but it all became a very complicated. One of the things I wasn't too sure about is the younger sister. In at the end of the first film, the older sister, as you would expect, ends up as the queen, and at the end of the second film, she's kind of given that up to go and be less than a queen, but to kind of do work elsewhere. And she leaves her younger sister, who coincidentally has just got married and settled down into a very kind of traditional family type relationship. Whereas the previous queen is skipping off with her assortment of friends and her snowman, but is not intending to do anything remotely conventional. So, as a gay person, I wasn't too sure. I thought it was a very gay film. I thought the colouring, the singing, the whole aesthetic, I think really did appeal to a gay audience. And I can understand exactly why people had a kind of hope, I think, rather than an expectation that Elsa might come out as gay. But I did still find it a little bit bewildering that, if you like, she was sent off to San Francisco, whereas the one who got married kind of took over the throne. I don't know what anybody else thinks about that.
I mean, I took a different interpretation from the ending. I mean, whether that's my own life experience is I took it differently to you. But I'm trying to describe it without spoiling what happens. Yes, she does step down from being the queen, but it's in order to I'm trying to, without spoiling it too much, unify a number of previously separated worlds.
Yeah.
So, whilst she isn't technically being the queen of this small Disney country, yeah, I think the message was around kind of equality and unity.
So did Harry and Meghan watch this before or after that?
Well, yes, without getting at all sidetracked, because I do want to keep this to script writing and plot development, if we possibly can. I always thought it was the younger children who were sent off to become the diplomats and the ministers and so on, and you kept the heir fully at home.
She turned the whole concept of royalty up in the air, didn't she? I mean, that was the thing, is that she lived a very fulfilled and happy life, doing something alternative, and I think that was interesting. I think both of those.
But that was the thing for me, very much so. Absolutely, off she went and did a happy alternative thing, as somebody who wasn't about to marry her prince, but she did it by anyway. I think it can certainly be interpreted as handing over a great deal of power to somebody who was going to live more conventionally.
No, it
depends
on.
She does marry a reindeer farmer. She's not kind of being married off to some other country's prince.
Oh,
absolutely. Kind of presented as a bit of a prince in the first instance. However, what I also wanted to say is the plot turns on the treachery of the grandfather. And in a way, that's very, very similar to Maleficent, which is very much driven by the treachery of human beings. And the storyteller kind of is very overtly says at the beginning of the film, you just can't trust people. You can trust, and, your real links with Frozen 2, you can trust the fairy folk, but you can't trust human beings. That seemed to me to be a very
right.
Thank you, Julie. A very strong theme in both films, and I don't know how much of that just reflects American culture over the last few years. But it does again seem to me to be a bit of a shift that Disney, you've always had the kind of threatening human beings, the people shooting Bambi, I dare I say it.
I would rather you didn't.
Yes, that is a step too
Spoilers.
But yes, I think that kind of sense of lack of trust seemed to me to be, I was quite surprised by. I understand that Maleficent 2 is on Disney Plus, and on the basis that we're still not going out, and if we were going out, we would be spending money. I expect to be watching that next weekend, and I'll come back to you. Robin, have you seen any films that you thought were particularly interesting in terms of storytelling in the last few days?
Well, being a family, I've also been watching Agent Carter, along with Breaking Bad. We started watching. I think the interesting thing about Agent Carter is, then we were talking about this before the show, is it presents a very interesting kind of set of juxtapositions, or sorry, of contradictions and or ways of thinking that get challenged quite openly. So it's set in like 1946, 1947, and the main character is the former girlfriend of Captain America. So obviously,
and MI6 super spy.
Yeah,
but
heavy dose of reality, not. But it's very interesting because she is the main character, and then another main character is a guy who lost his leg in the war, and then there's a further character that's come in the second series who is a black scientist, and they really that they both present all the isms in it, but challenge them to make the people Agent Carter herself, and then the other two characters whose names we can worry about later,
Daniel Souza and Dr. Wilkes.
Yeah, challenge it both verbally, so within the speech, the text of the film, but also by their actions. So it's very much, everyone says, actions are louder than words. They keep proving every time someone says, "Oh, you can't do that because you're a woman," or "Why are you doing here? Only the pale people are allowed." I mean, that's quoting.
I think it's the line that they like their membership male and pale, which I thought was a really
good. And all these things are challenged within it, whilst actually not kind of making the story is still about a super spy, but it's really well woven in to challenge all these preconceptions that were around in 1946 and 47, and unfortunately are still very prevalent today. So it's actually really very cleverly written.
I think it sounds fascinating. I'm going to bring this discussion slowly to an end by saying I don't know if anybody remembers Alan Sutherland's writing and lecturing around film and disability, but I'm thinking we should ask Alan onto the show, because when I first came across his work about 20 plus years ago, I was fascinated because he did a lecture about disability in film, but he was looking at films like Dumbo and Edward Scissorhands. And when I really, really thought about it, I could see exactly what he was talking about, that Hollywood has used physical difference and discussed physical difference and had physical difference embedded in films, but without making it explicit. So it's about somebody who's got the extra large ears, or you've got the magical fingers, and they show all the downsides and all the upsides, and there's a story on top of it as well. But I think when you start looking at some of the values and some of the ways that they're telling the story, it's also what makes it so gripping. And I think there's no surprise that the kind of films that Alan references are incredibly popular films, because people do want to come to grips with these things and they do find the themes fascinating, but it's got to be done well, and it can't be the point of the film. It's like you were saying, it's not, you might challenge these things within it and create positive role models and everything else, but if you don't have a good story, it's absolutely nothing. And I think that might be a good time, as I can see she's waiting, for Isolta Avila to join us, because their work is always based on good stories. Or maybe she's going to tell me that's not quite true, but let me see if I can get Isolta into the stream.
Hi guys.
Hiya.
Hi.
So you're listening to us, I think, but tell me.
I was, and I'm a Disney scholar. So I went to CalArts, which was the avant-garde Disney school. I was really interested in what you were saying about the characters and those pieces. Yeah.
We're really interested in hearing more about this. Let's start by telling us more about the course that you did, or the Disney.
You want to know more about Disney?
Yeah, well, what you did, what a Disney scholar is.
Oh, so yeah, I have a degree in dance from California Institute of the Arts, which was founded by Disney in the 1970s, and it was extremely avant-garde and very um, really out there. All the new Disney animators, and the new way of working with film and really looking at diversity really came from Cal Arts. And at Cal Arts, it was amazing. It was a completely accessible school, incredibly diverse, lots of disabled and deaf and non-white students, and just all of us together, Latinos, men, women, gay, straight, just the whole thing. So it was a great experience.
I think it is so interesting because I think if people think about it at all, they think of Disney as being quite conservative and not about.
But he was a fascist. I mean, let's be honest. Walt Disney was a fascist. He was a renowned fascist, and I think what's interesting is the kickback that's come subsequent to his leadership.
Yeah.
Which I think
Yeah.
it makes it one of the more radical, sort of film producers.
Well, moving on, not so much to dance because it's also about dance on film. Sign Dance Collective International have really been with Together 2012 from the very beginning because you performed for us in 2012 in the centre of Stratford. You came back and you performed at our very first funded festival, thank you Arts Council again, England, and that was, I think, in December 2013, and you've come back several times since, including at the Old Town Hall as part of a Disability History Month festival with a production of Carthage. And Carthage is still in your repertoire, and you're doing something with it tomorrow night. And I wondered if you'd like to tell us a bit more about Carthage and a bit more about what's happening.
So Cartagena is by a writer called Caridad Savich. She's New York-based artist, writer, playwright, and she is Cuban American. She's born in Cuba. And the piece, the dance theater, it's sign dance theater, so it's a combination of sign language dance theater plus different languages altogether. Is about human trafficking, slavery, and the loss of language and identity. So we wanted to do the piece because it really pertains to the way we work. We work with very diverse people in the team, including deaf and disabled artists, and the company is led by David Bauer and myself, disabled artists. So but we work with people from all over the world. And this piece is striking in its writing, in its strength, how it talks about the human endeavor, human suffering, and the success of how when we work together, we can achieve so much. So it was great to perform it at the Together Festival, because actually that performance was like a catapult into making the show a really international show, because it went on to do such amazing tours in Turkey and across the Middle East, with huge audiences. And the piece itself just touches. It's just so heartfelt. And as a Cuban, a Latino woman, it just speaks to me so much. I'm so proud of that work. It took us 5 years to make it. Yeah.
I found it very powerful, particularly because it wasn't using spoken English as the vehicle. It was using the dance to tell the story and the sign to tell the story, and it was very, very, very evocative and strangely easy to follow. Although it was very painful as a subject, it was actually really easy to follow.
Yeah. One time we were performing in Turkey in somewhere called Samsun, I think. And there were like 1,500 people in the audience. And at the end of the show, all the women came on stage
Oh, wow.
and wanted to hug me.
Oh.
God. I mean, they were crying, and you're right, Julie, it's so moving, and on stage, I feel myself like, don't cry, you're performing.
Because Robin's a guitarist under the name Angry Fish, and I was very struck by the live guitar. How does the music work when you're making the piece?
So that Carthage had a really turbulent development, but the one person who was very prominent and consistent in the show was the musician. She was like, from the beginning, she had a very clear ideas, but she did like concrete music. So she was using, she was slamming doors and like working with gravel and all kinds of things. So the piece is partly recorded and partly live. And then she kind of sewed the melodies and things through it. And that's how she worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fantastic. She borrowed my guitar in order to, I think, have to sort of risk hers on the flight. And yes, I'm sure it will never sound like that ever again. And it certainly hasn't done ever since, but I'm sure it's benefited from it. So, how's Carthage being presented tomorrow, given that everything live is still yet to take place?
So, after our tour in the Middle East, we were very near Iran and Iraq, and we were really moved by how it impacted those communities and how they impacted our work. So right off the tour, I said to the company, let's film this now. So we filmed it at Wickham Arts Center. And we did it in 5 days, and it is a beautiful film. I think it's just because we were so raw from the tour. So it's a film, it's in sections, and it's just very straight performance. There's not any editing, it's a straight performance. So people just get the show itself. Yeah.
And where's that being shown tomorrow?
At the Llangollen Fringe Festival online. Llangollen is a little village in North Wales near Wrexham.
And would you have been performing live at the festival? Was that the original idea, or were you contacted for virtual?
Two things. We were performing our new show, which we're going to do a little bit with you on the In Between Spaces, the Time Project. We were going to Focus Wales, which is a huge, Dave will know, is a huge music festival, huge music festival. And we were invited to perform there. That was canceled twice so far. And the guy one of the directors for that is also the director for the Fringe. And I said to Rob, who's our filmmaker, Rob said, "Oh, why don't we give them, Carthage? They might like it." I said, "Oh my God, they will never take Carthage. Never. They'll hate it. It's too heavy and it's too, controversial." So they loved it.
Of course they did. I don't forget that the Welsh have suffered under the oppression of the English for centuries. They do know about oppression in Wales.
Yes, this is Judy, who used to live in Wales, of course. So we have a highlights and links page on our website, www.together2012.org.uk. The main link is Together Unlocked TV, and then on the sub menu, there's the highlights and links. We're going to be putting that link in for anybody who wants to watch the stream tomorrow night. I believe we're also going to be screening that, if we're lucky, as part of our film festival, which, as I said, takes place on the first weekend in December. But we're very excited that Sign Dance Collective International are going to bring a part of their new project, we think very possibly as the launch event. Do you want to just give us a tiny little glimpse into that project now, Isolde?
Yeah, so our new project is called our touring production is called In Between Spaces. And when we got into our 5th performance out of 18 international performances, and then the lockdown happened. Well, we locked down a week before lockdown because I was petrified. So I'm asthmatic. So I was like, oh God, I'm staying in. And we were in Belgium and we got stuck in the airport. We couldn't get a flight back, but eventually we managed to do it. But then out of that, I was thinking, how are we going to do workshops? And I started thinking of how to work with people virtually. Like if I'm a dancer and you're a musician, how can we work together virtually? So I thought, everybody send in a 1.5-minute piece of work, and then we will collaborate through the editing. But In Between Spaces has this wonderful piece called spoken word piece called Time by Lionel Macaulay. And that was the kind of kickoff for the Time project. And those poems and the piece that we've been rehearsing every week, thanks to Arts Council England, are really hot right now. They're fantastic. So we're really excited to share that with together and with your audiences.
And Lionel's based in New York, but was part of the company that you brought over, I think, to perform with us at the Liberty Festival, because I remember going with him to Tate Modern to see the launch of their Black American Artists exhibition. And he's in New York still, isn't he?
He is, and he's in the last few weeks, we've really been looking at his work and celebrating all of our African American colleagues and artists. And I'm Latino, so it's just meant a lot what's happening right now. It's put everything on the boiler for us, looking at the films, Black American films from Black people from all over the world, and celebrating our culture and our diversity and working with just everyone. So it's really important to point out those artists all the time, because we live on one planet.
Well, absolutely. But I think in the circumstances, yeah, it's particularly nice for me as the Post Programming Festival to be able to say, yes, there's a production like this that's just so relevant in every single way to be able to use to launch the festival. So we will see you, I'm sure, on this live stream before November, December, but we will very much look forward to the performance in November and the film in December. But for everybody who can't wait, and I'm amongst them, Carthage is on tomorrow night as part of the Llangollen Festival, and we will have that on our highlights and links page. So now we're going to say goodbye to Isolta, and we're going to have a look at a short video that just tells you a bit more about our Joining from Home program.
Thanks for coming along. It's so lovely to see you.
So nice to see you guys. Thank you so much. Love you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Together 2012 is running a Join In From Home programme from our website, together2012.org.uk. Click on the link at the top of the page, Join In From Home, to go straight to the main page, where you have a wide range of accessible, inclusive creative activities, mostly using things that you would already have at home. At the top of the page and throughout the pages, you will also see videos in British Sign Language to translate the site for deaf people. These videos can also be useful if you have difficulties reading and you simply want to hear more of the content. The Join In From Home programme is based on the activities that we would usually be running in East London. The dance club usually meets on the fourth Monday of each month, and they create improvised masked dance for the screen. Here you can also see their very first film, where they simply made masks from paper plates, covered themselves with fabric, and just moved gently to the music. You can hear as well there's an improvised soundtrack. So we're suggesting that you make a mask out of anything you can think of. It could be a cardboard box, a paper bag, a paper plate, as in here. Video yourself dancing in it and then share the video with us. We will show it on screen, and we will also enter it into the dance programme of our film festival, which we run every December. If you're temporarily or permanently chair-based, there's also a warm-up you can do here created by our associate wheelchair dance company Folk in Motion, and that focuses on relaxing your upper body and improving your breathing. The Photographers and Filmmakers Club usually meets on the second Monday of each month. We're inviting you to make a video at home with the theme of home and share it with us. You can use a phone or a camera, make any kind of film you wish, including drama, documentary, dance, animation, artist films, comedy, and they'll be eligible for a CAT award at our December Film Festival. You can also watch with us from home. In addition to Together 2012 TV with Together Unlocked and other live streams, we have the Together Disability Film Festival highlights. Each year we run the International Together Disability Film Festival in Stratford, bringing together a wide range of films by disabled filmmakers, as well as films about disability issues and disabled people. We always publish the programmes online with links to the films that are freely available. So we invite you to revisit our recent film festivals from the comfort of your own home, and also to send us reviews of those films. And finally, you can sit back, relax, and enjoy videos of past live performances, artist talks, and creative workshops that we've produced in the past here. So, for example, from past festivals, we have documentation and films of creative dance workshops, street art performances, dances that the dance club have created, dance performances, and of course, we're continuing to add new activities on a regular basis. And here we are back again. So you were very quiet when we were talking to Isolta, but did you have any reflections on what she was saying?
Just sounded awesome. I think we were just quiet in just kind of enjoying listening to her talk. I think more than anything else.
Yeah, reverence.
Yeah, we've always loved having Sign Dance Collective International with us, and one of the reasons is they're just so inclusive. So our workshops are always open to everybody. As I said earlier, we run the clubs on a weekday morning through the year, but we would usually have additional workshops as part of the festival. This year we will be doing that, but they'll be on Zoom, so they'll be shorter and with slightly different formats. But I always remember that the company working with a group that included at the town hall one of our artists who's very, very poorly, who'd come up through, if you like, graduated from the Children's Hospice, is only semi-conscious part of the time. And the enthusiasm with which she was able to connect with the company, I'm sure it's because so much sign is incorporated in their work and they're so used to communicating by touch and reading body language. But this is somebody who's doesn't have a package from the council to pay for activities because they don't consider she can benefit from those activities. This is the harsh environment we live in terms of social care. But she certainly benefited from that workshop. And I thought that was pretty awesome myself. We're going to move on and look at where you can get money from if this has stimulated you to make more work, whether that's films, dancing, theatre, visual arts, music, or anything else. there's a lot of funding opportunities, well, relatively speaking, for disabled artists around at the moment. The key thing I think that has really changed that will impact on most people is project grants are now open again from Arts Council England. Did anybody have a chance to look at the Arts Council's website and get any more information on this?
Sorry, did you want to speak, Robin?
I'm going to say that I did have a look. Yes. And I mean, I think the probably the I didn't go into look at a form and such, but so kind of the headline information that is out there, and I think probably the biggest positive that it's got at the moment is that you don't have to have 10% match funding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big difference.
Yeah. I imagine the rest of it's going to be pretty similar. The art forms and stuff that you can apply under.
No, there's a significant difference in this that I spotted.
Okay, cool.
And you, perhaps you can tell me if I've got it wrong, but it looked like for the first time in ages there was opportunity for research and development, and that R&D money, the research and development money, includes collaboration with other artists and other art forms. So you've got an opportunity to create a piece by working alongside and commissioning or co-commissioning other artists. Perhaps, say, for example, I wanted to do something and take a piece of music on to a next level, then I have that opportunity to look at what that would look like and what I need to do in order to progress it. I'd also have an opportunity to work with a visual artist if I wanted to create something that was more interactive. And for me, I think that R&D opportunity is absolutely critical, because unlike you guys, I'm not so professionally known. I have no real following. I have a little mini following, which is lovely. But if I want to create something that's going to be worthwhile and say something that has some value, I'd really want to research it and to develop it a bit more before I put in for the project funding per se.
I mean, that sounds very interesting. For anybody who's never applied for an Arts Council project grant, it's the main grant that's available to just anybody, whether you're an individual or an organisation, whether you're a professional artist or a professional something else. They represent quite a change. They used to have what they called grants for the arts, and it was the same thing in the sense that anybody could apply for them, but they very much were for creating art. And the project grants, it's a bit like it says on the tin, they really are for running projects. Not everybody who wants to make work wants to make a project out of it, and those are the limitations that I've found. The other limitation I found over the last few years is because there's been so many local authority cuts to arts spending, there's a lot more organisations applying for project grants now and not just individuals. And the sad reality is that if you're an individual, you just don't have the same resources and capacity as you would with project grants. That's something the Arts Council have been looking at, because just before the coronavirus started, we we're moving into a new phase of the Arts Council, and of course, all their emergency response, that's been kept not quiet, but it's sort of fallen into the background. But they always have a 10-year strategy. And this year marked the start of a new 10-year strategy. And that strategy was all about the individual and reaching out to every single person. And some of that, I think, is about changing the way project grants function. I suspect, I haven't had a chance to look at the research and development bit, the R&D, but some of that I think is things that you could have done that they're being a bit more explicit about. The 10% that Robin mentioned, there's always been a requirement to bring 10% in, but they've already been quite flexible about saying, well, that doesn't have to be cash. It might be that somebody lends you a rehearsal room. It might be you've got your own studio, and if you were hiring a studio, it would cost X amount. So there always has been some flexibility about how you make that 10% up. But I think in the circumstances, for it to be much more explicit and to, pretty much drop it as a requirement seems to make sense, because it's actually, particularly for disabled people, really hard to go out and find things like sponsorship if you're not networking.
Yeah. I mean, I think from the reading of it, that might not be a long-term thing. I think that's a COVID related response for the time being. And I think you're Julie, you're absolutely right about, the idea that you can be at a kind of more of an experimental level is also in there, because I do think that for those of us, for many artists, disabled artists or otherwise, who haven't been able to do anything in terms of contacting anybody else or working collaboratively for 4 months because their situation doesn't allow it, they're kind of in a different position. And I also think that I would imagine that somewhere deeper in the project proposal side of it will be less of a focus on having to say where you're going to perform it or present it. I mean, as I said, I didn't get that deep, but I would hope that, because obviously at the moment, who knows how many theatres are going to be left or how many art galleries are going to be left. So, I think it may well be looking much more about the creation of art because it should be created.
Yes, I think it's a really interesting point you bring up about the scheduling. One of the, if you like, benefits but also curses of applying for these grants is that previously you've had to have a calendar of exactly when you're going to do each task. And the benefit is that when you get the money several months after you wrote the application and you've pretty much forgotten about it, you've got in writing exactly what you've got to do when to fulfill the original vision. But it does make it much more complicated at the beginning. And I think I stopped applying for funding for certain things because I didn't want to make the decision about where I was going to perform in 12 months' time. I wanted to have the option of having a show and taking it, or indeed an exhibition, going to a venue and saying, here it is, would you consider programming it either next year or the year after, or whatever that looks like? Because the people who are going to sort of rubber stamp it in advance are not always going to be the people you aspire to show your work with. So I'm going to open that up and say, as always, in fact, one of the clubs that we run is a professional development club, which I lead. At the moment, we're offering that via Zoom and email. I can't do detailed support around funding applications, but I can give some more broad advice. But critically, if you have a project you're looking for a home for, and you think actually that would fit really well into the Together 2020 Disability History Month Festival, then do come to me. If you think that would fit very well into a Together live stream, do come to me. Because what we're then able to do, if we agree to include it, is it helps with your grant application because you have got some guarantee of where it's going to be seen. And we don't demand exclusives. We want artist work to be seen wherever it possibly can be seen. And I just say that because some of the artist funding that we're going to discuss can be venue specific. It can be, well, you can't show that work because there's an exclusive contract with the South Bank Centre. But we're very, very open. So, like I say, if you've got a project you would like to stream with us or include in our festival, if you got it funded and you'd like us to support your application, get in touch. We've been running the address at the bottom of the screen. I'll put it on again in a minute, but you can just send it to JU info, or indeed TV at together2012.org.uk, and I will still see it. So there's other commissions out at the moment specifically for disabled artists, aren't there, Julie? Do you want to tell us about one of them?
Disability Arts Online actually also have a big section on the Dada Fest call out for work, but they're advertising 2 guest editorships, but they're looking specifically to respond to the Black Lives Matter by recruiting 2 what they call people of color for those to apply for those editorships. The return is £2,000 freelance fee plus a budget for commissioning content and access features of the editorial. The closing date of that is the 31st of August, so there's a wee while, but certainly past that round. I think it's very sensible of them, actually. When I read through their thinking behind this, they recognise that as a collective group of people, although they're not a collective, but as a group of people running Disability Arts Online, they're predominantly white, and that has been the case really since forever, I think, virtually. And it's critical to be able to support and promote Black work, people of color, being able to create new skills, to be able to highlight, artists' interests, etc., and to become part of that establishment. And this is the only way, really, unfortunately, that I could see that they would have an opportunity to become a part of that establishment.
And I think, as we're a national portfolio organisation, we are part of that establishment. The establishment also risks being left behind and becoming completely irrelevant and out of touch. It's very much a two-way process in terms of benefits. So what are the Dada Fest opportunities? Dada Fest is a very long-running disability arts festival in Liverpool in the Northwest. I've been honoured to show work there on several occasions. They've now decided that it's going to be entirely online, so they're calling for commissions now.
Right. Well, they're really there's a lot to look at with the Dada Fest call out. They've got 15 commissions, 10 micro commissions they call it, of up to £1,000, or one of 4 festival commissions of up to £2,500. And they're designed to be presented as part of the 2021 season of activities, and some will be highlighted as part of the Dada Fest International in November of this year. I think it's worth having a look. They are a pioneering organisation. They've got a very long track record now. Over the years, they've highlighted several artists' work who are really out of the mainstream, including you, actually, Jew90. At one point, you had a show there, which I documented, and I can remember thinking how exciting it was at the time to be part of that particular group of people.
Yes, I think my most embarrassing moment, because Dada Fest has moved around different points in the year before settling, is when my work Perception 1 to 4 was shown outside the entrance to the Blue Coat, but that's because it's basically me nude, larger than life size, from behind, responding to the Backs by Matisse. And that piece is currently on exhibition at Trinity Buoy Wharf, not very far away from us, as a kind of rainbow of bodies celebrating the NHS.
2 meters high, I might add, so quite large.
Yeah, so like I say, moving swiftly on, we're reaching the end of the show. I believe there are some commissions for Dada Fest that are open to all disabled artists, and some that are sponsored by Granada Television, which are only open to artists in the Northwest. And I also believe that Disability Arts Online have some unlimited commissions coming up, but we'll have a look at that and come back to that next week. On Wednesday, we will have our usual slightly comic elements where we have Julie's assistant's dog Precious doing virtual nature watch.
Virtually nothing.
Yes, virtually watching. We have the Clockwork Paralympics where we will be racing to see which teddy bear which is taking part in the virtual bear hunt can wear a gold medal this week. For some reason, it always seems to be the surgeon as bears, whichever way we decide things, that can't actually be right. But of course, they're nodding at me to say, yes, it is. We have lots and lots of poetry because Wednesday is our pop-up poetry club day, including film poems. We have Josh on gaming and virtual sport, and as they say, much, much more. So do join us then. In a minute, we're going to finish, as we said before, with positive affirmations to boost your mental health from Jade Sempare and Act Up Newham. So we will be sitting here with our microphones off doing these positive affirmations as well. But before that, I think we should just say some formal goodbyes. So I'll go back to the West Midlands.
It's goodbye from me.
Yeah, and well, I'd be goodbye for me in a second. I just want to say that actually it's worth everybody looking out at what those commissions are, and look at them very carefully when you see how much is on offer, because sometimes you think, oh, look, £2,500, that's a load of money, but just be aware of what it is you've got to do for that. That's not a negative. It's just, look, if you're interested, read every bit of it first. Other than that, I think our own commissions are fabulous, and what you can get from together can be an extremely productive and supportive way of moving forwards. And on that note, I will say goodbye and looking forward to doing some exercises with Jade.
Bye-bye, you guys. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, and I think my final word on that would be some great art needs money to make, but not all great art. It is entirely possible to make great art with no money at all. So don't think you've got to have the Arts Council or anybody else's permission or money. Stay home, stay creative, and stay well. And on that note, goodbye from us.
Bye-bye from me.
And over to Jade.
Exercise and affirmation will boost our confidence so that we can reach our full potential. I will be sending some affirmations. Can you please repeat them back? I am a strong person.
I am a strong person.
No one can make me feel second best.
No one can make me feel second best.
I am my own person. I am
my own
person. Strength comes from within me. Strength comes from
within me.
The happiness I see lies within me. The happiness I see
Lying
within me. Now we're going to do some light exercise. Can you tell me an affirmation from yourself?
I'm a man. I'm proud of myself. I love being with all of my friends.
Easy, easy. I can do it. Keep moving on.
I am black and proud. I am a woman with my own words.
I am Strong.
I am proud of myself.
Oh, I'm happy and cool.
Imagine we are on the boat and we're all shouting our affirmations to the snake. I am proud.
Strong.
I hope you're all feeling relaxed and strong mentally and physically with the affirmations and exercise we have done. Act up!
Heads up.
Act up!
Uh,